What's good, family? I hope all is well with you and yours. When people ask me, I'm always saying things like, hey, I woke up on the top side of the dirt, so it's a good day. For the most part, I believe that. I feel that most of the time. Sometimes, though, you ain't feeling your best, so I understand that. If you know anything about me, is that I'm always looking for inspirational stories to motivate myself, inspire myself, and also to share with the listener. That's what I'm about. That's what I want to do. And I want to provide that because I know at different times in our life, we could use a little pick me up. And again, I do that. One of the ways I do it through is podcasting. And this episode of A Brother of a Certain Age is really no different. I know we like to think whatever life throws at us, we can handle it, especially the men. I'm going to say that again, especially the men. We feel like we could take on anything, right? And, whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger, all that good stuff. But do we really believe that? If we really believe that, we wouldn't have the need for, to therapy and things like that. We need some reassurance. We need some guidance. We need coaching. We need direction sometime. So, do we really feel that way is the question. But anyway, nevertheless, I had the opportunity to chop it up with a brother named Corey Lee. He goes by the name Pheez, a husband, father, a Navy veteran, and he's a hip hop artist. I grew up on hip hop, so I definitely, was feeling that part of it. And just to add to his story, a little twist, he became paralyzed while he was in the Navy. He had an accident while he was in the Navy. And it's definitely something that's life altering. But, he ain't let it stop him from living a productive life, being a productive citizen. And for me personally, he's an inspiration to me. And I mentioned hip hop artists. And so as far as MC, I ain't even going to hold you. He got bars. And, I'm a hip hop head for real. So I definitely appreciated that. The fact that, his catalog is good. He got two albums complete. So he's doing his thing and he's got more stuff on the way. So definitely going to be looking out for that brother's work. And I'm rambling on a little bit anyway. I know y'all want to hear Pheez, so let's get into it. And I went down your catalog and I saw that
yes, sir.
You had the Flash shirt on, so I said we'll pull up on that. You DC or all comic?
So I'm both, really. You know what I mean? Like Flash and Quicksilver, and I'm like my two favorite comic book heroes. I'm all about like people with speed.
Okay.
So that's just my thing. Like me and my oldest son, we the same. Like for last Halloween, he dressed up as Flash. Like had the full regalia on, and I had the shirt, and I got a fitted match. So yeah, and I go between both worlds. You know what I mean? Because comics have a great story because they're just reflecting, different themes that's going on currently. You know what I mean? And it's a way that kind of bridges the gap for everybody.
Right.
Through the characters. How about yourself?
I'm more of a DC. I like the Flash. Did you watch the TV shows too or no?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I was following Gotham and Flash, and then it's like I started missing like a couple episodes, and then I'm like, oh man, I can't bounce back. So then I just sit there and I go like, all right. But when HBO Max came out and it was part of Comcast package, that's when I started like going down. I was, oh my gosh, they got all these DC anime joints. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna sit here and catch up on a lot of that stuff. But yeah, like I try to catch up, but there's so many.
Yeah,
it's so many.
That's what happened with me. I was the only one I followed through to the end was Arrow. I watched that to the end. I fell off a little bit on Flash. I did watch Gotham to the end, actually. It got real good, so you didn't see the end of Gotham.
Yeah, nah, okay. I forgot what. I think like when I came in, when I like stopped watching it, they started introducing like, gosh, it was like when Jada Pinkett came onto the show.
Right.
And like what the character that she played, like I think she was like the influence behind either like Penguin or somebody. She was like kind of like a female kingpin. So that's where like I end up dropping off at. And then it's the same thing with they had this show, I think it was called like Happily Ever After, and they combined all the different fairy tale stories.
Okay.
I had gotten into that one too, and then missed like 3 or 4 episodes. I was like, gotta put it away. But yeah, no, I heard Gotham like was like everything was good.
Yeah, they finished it off real good too. So I won't spoil that. You can get back to that
Yeah,
when
I'm
you
gonna
get a
check that out.
chance. So yeah, so just start off. Just shout out any of your social media platforms where people can follow your journey. I'll get that out the way now.
Definitely. I'm available on all major platforms as far as music is concerned, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, you name it. I'm on all of that. My social media, as far as Twitter is concerned, you can find me on there at nohiddenpheez.
Okay.
Um, Instagram on Pheez83. And then if you just type in Pheez, and I'm in a black and white picture on YouTube as well. But I'm pretty much everywhere. You
Okay.
know what I mean?
All right. So you said you was born in Connecticut,
Yeah,
and born in Hartford, Connecticut, to be specific.
yeah. Mount Sinai Hospital,
Okay.
which is now like a rehab center.
Okay.
It's not even like a medical hospital to that degree anymore. It's just more for rehabbing. But yeah, born there in '83, what have you. Lived in Westbrook Village projects, for several years before my parents got together, my mom and my stepfather, and decided, stop paying rent and buy a home. It's a better investment. And then we moved to Bloomfield in about '91 or so, and I just grew up through there. Graduated Bloomfield High, and then I went off and I joined the Navy.
Okay. Okay. Now the Navy, well, the military, was that something that you was thinking about, or that was like the? Because I know towards the end of high school, those recruiters are in there in the high school like crazy trying to get you in there. But was that something you thought about, or you got recruited into that?
Yeah. So like prior to that, like I used to box, and I thought about like joining special forces, and it just so happened that the recruiter was in the cafeteria, and my kid's sister, she was like, can I get her a free water bottle or something? So I was just like, okay, but I was already thinking about the Navy anyway, so I started talking to the recruiter, and he was just like, yeah, so what's your plan? After high school, and I told him, I was just like, college is expensive. I'm not so sure if that's the route I want to take, but I do like the idea of joining the military and paying for college and having a lot of experience that a lot of people post high school don't necessarily get. So he said, "Yep, what you doing on Saturday?" So like I had this like concoction in my mind. I'm just like, if I tell them no, they're gonna like show up and snatch me up, or have you,
Right.
far fetched fantasies. And so I told him like I'm not doing anything. I was about 17 at the time, and he pulled up, and I told my mom like that following day. This is like in January or so. Excuse me, 2001. I said I just want to join the Navy. She's like, really? I was just like, yeah. So he kind of sold me on the aspect of you can go in what they call undesignated, so you don't necessarily have a particular rate or job specification, and then from there you may go around and try different things. So I was just like, oh, like it's kind of like I'm going to freelance things and just have this opportunity, which wasn't technically true.
Right.
They just put you where they're going to put you, and so I decided like this is what I want to do, and I went through all the preliminary like things that you have to do before get recruited. You have to pass the drug test. You got to pass the ASVAB test, and I came in as what they call an undesignated fireman. So that they work mainly like in engineering, and I remember getting ready, like graduating and telling people like, hey, look, I'm joining the Navy. They're like, oh man, what if a war break out? I was like, man, ain't no war gonna break out. Like we good. And I went to boot camp September 6th, 2001.
Oh, you was.
Um,
Oh man.
yeah, like so I'm 5 days out, and got to boot camp. I remember just standing there. I was on watch, and they asked for everybody from New York to step out the room, and I started getting concerned because I didn't know. I'm just like, New York is only 2 hours from where where CT is, like depending where you at. And I'm just like, what's going on? And then everybody came back with this like solemn face. And I'm like, yo, what happened? They're like, Twin Towers, 2 planes flew into them. And I was like, man, that sounded like terrorism to me.
Yeah.
And so I naturally, like most of us, got nervous because you join for this particular reason, and you got certain goals you want to reach, and then all of that stuff gets clipped when it's like the reality is it gets real.
Yeah.
At that moment, you're 18, very impressionable, and you could possibly lose your life, and that was that.
And so now you got that on your mind through the whole boot camp.
Yeah.
You feel like you was able to, like, were you all in, even though I know it's hard not to be because they put you through the ringer, but like
Right.
knowing that you're not going to boot camp and then going to a job, you going to boot camp and you may be going, right to war. Like, how was that boot camp for you?
Yeah. I just kind of like just had tunnel vision about everything. I was just like, every day is just like a different step that you just got to take. And so I just focused on, like, okay, you got a test coming up past that, and then move on to the next thing. And so when you're in boot camp, you have like several different choices where they're going to try to put you. And so they ask you like where you want to go, if possibly overseas, what kind of command you want to go to, ship, shore duty, and then what type of vessel you could possibly be on, cruiser, destroyer, carrier. And so at the time I wanted to stay close to my girlfriend. And so I chose between California, Connecticut, and Virginia. Then I chose like a couple places overseas, like Japan, et cetera. And I chose a carrier. So I wind up being stationed in Norfolk, Virginia on the USS Theodore Roosevelt,
Right.
which at the time, that ship was the first one to go over to the Persian Gulf.
Okay.
So it was just like there was no stopping
Right.
after that. So after boot camp, I went to apprenticeship school, and then I went on leave for about a little less than a month. So I did get a chance to go back to CT before being flown out to Bahrain and then out to my ship, and that was that. And it's a different perspective. Like when you're in the Navy and you're at war, your vessel is typically designed to do a particular function.
Right.
And so with the Roosevelt, it's a big aircraft carrier. So we do a lot of launch and recovery. And so like you're kind of like indirectly involved in it. So, that was a blessing in disguise because, I have friends who joined the Army, and they were immediately in the middle of all that, in the thick of it. So, it's just different perspectives. But, I was nervous, like in boot camp. I was just like, oh man, I'm gonna come back with the folded flag, and you start just imagining what could possibly happen, especially like many people kind of misconstrue that they like, oh, you joined the Navy. Sure. Then if you join like the Army or the Marines, then I always point people to Pearl Harbor. I'm just like, that's a Navy base that got attacked. And then prior to that, there in 2000, it was the USS Cole that got bombed.
Right.
And a lot of it, like 19 or so sailors died because of that. So there's just this reality of what could possibly happen. But I'm thankful to God that I came back home.
Yeah, I mean, war is war, right? So they're not looking at the potential enemies, not looking at the the warships and saying they off limits. If they can get to you, because especially if you're in a support role, if they can get to you, then they're gonna try. Now, I didn't even think about too, because a friend of mine's in the Navy. I think he's retired now, but when it was wartime, I remember asking him like, like, you worried? He was like, I don't know what kind of ship he was on, but he said, nah, if they call us in, everything's over. So I don't know what level of ship it was, but he was saying that what they have on the ship he was on, that's it's a wrap if the ship he's on gets called into action. So there is different levels of, but it's still nonetheless, you have family and friends and things you want to get back to. So that definitely plays a big part on, your psyche out there. So in the military, something happened that changed your life, changed the course of your life. Would you say it changed the course of your life?
For sure.
or do you think, so you look at it as changing the course of your life?
Yeah, I mean, to this day, like if I hadn't have gotten hurt, um, I would be effectively getting ready to retire
Right.
right now. You know, I'm 38, so it's like that's 20 years ago,
Right.
and I could be retired and still move on to a different job. And I like the camaraderie. I like knowing that there's somebody there who desires just as much as you to get the job done.
Right.
And there's no time for slacking off because the things that you're in charge over, whether you're 18 or you're 50, you have to maintain the integrity of this vessel. And for me in the shop that I was a part of, we were very important to maintaining what the ship needed to do. Like if you ever seen aircraft carrier, which my ship was in the news due to COVID, with the captain, announcing like, look, we need to pull into the port because everybody had gotten sick. All them sailors.
Yeah, I remember
That's
that. Okay.
Yeah, that's my ship. You know what I mean? So it's like when you got a crew of 5,000 people on there and half of your people are getting sick, you can't. It's hard to maintain.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that like all those individuals are important, whether you're in the galley and you're cleaning it or you're the captain of the ship. You know, you need everybody because we're all instrumental. And so because of those things, like I don't take anything for granted. I think everybody has an important role in life, and you just have to look at it and extract from that person how powerful they are, because you're leaning on everybody, and that's one of the greatest things that being a part of a system of individuals who desire to protect and serve and be selfless. It just strengthens that type of feeling.
Right. So how did you get injured?
Right. So it was my friend's birthday. Shout out to my man Royale. And he was getting ready to turn 21. And I and my girlfriend at the time, we were like, hey, let's, go to the beach. And it was just hot that entire week. And so God has a way of trying to warn you and stop you from doing things. So we were just waiting in the car for Roy. We were on base. And we started like, I don't really want to go. And I was just like, yeah, I know, but, we'll just go, enjoy. We could leave early, maybe we'll get some drinks, and then we'll meet up with everybody later. And so it took like a couple hours before he came to base. And then we switched cars. I drove out there, and then I couldn't find a place to change. So like I ran up in a hotel, and I'm in the hallway changing quickly because they just wouldn't let me use the bathroom. So there's all these like little things that was hindering me. And then finally, we got to the beach, and we're out there like tumbling and doing flips in the sand, me and my friends. And one of my guys, Preston, was like just surveying the land and just admiring like just kind of like the beauty of the ocean. And I jokingly said to him, like, you see anybody drowning? And he was like, there's somebody, go Lee, because we all call each other by our last name.
Right.
Or like, people call me Pheez. And I ran into the water, and it was just more shallow than deep. And when I dove, I broke my neck on impact. And I was just face down, literally preparing to drown. And I was like, God, save me. And so my body turned a little bit, enough to breathe. And one of my friends was calling out to me, like, yo, Pheez, stop playing. Because I'm always joking around and kidding with people. But, in my heart, I'm like, bro, I'm not playing. Like, I need help. And so they brought me out of the water, and I was laid on the beach, and I was just like panting. Like I couldn't catch my breath. Like the wind was knocked out of me. And I could just remember asking, like, where are my arms? Because I couldn't feel my legs. And they're like, yo, they're next to you. And I was thinking, like, if my arms are up, because that's what they felt like I was in the position of diving. So almost like muscle memory. I was like, if they're up, then that's good. Then maybe it's just numb or what have you. They're like, they're on the side of you. So I knew, like, from the time I broke my neck to when they pulled me out, I knew I was paralyzed. Because, like, feeling just left my body. And, the ambulance came and, and took me to the hospital. And I got into when I got into the ambulance, I was taking off my water shoes, cut my swimming trunks. I was a little frustrated because I was like, man, I just bought these. Like in my head, just
Right.
like trying to keep a calm attitude. I called out to my girl. She said, I'm here because they was asking like all my like personal information. I'm like, ask her. And after that, I just woke up in a military hospital. And, that was pretty much the beginning of this journey. Right now, that was June 12th, 2005, so 16 years ago.
Right. You remember after like it set in, or did it? You said you knew immediately on the beach, but was there a
Yeah.
time period after being in the hospital where, the reality of it set in? You remember your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was sitting there because like you're comatose because they have performed surgery on my neck, so they got to stabilize me. So I have a halo bracing my neck so that I don't move, and I would just have all these like vivid dreams. And when I came to, like my mother and my dad was there, my aunt had came there, and my girl and one of my close friends, Terry, stayed behind because my ship was getting ready to go to Disney World before we were getting ready to go on my third deployment. So like I realized like even then I said, man, this is it. Like I'm never gonna get the Suburban that I wanted to purchase after the cruise. I don't know if my relationship is gonna be stable post this, and it's just all these thoughts would come to my mind. But I was still like lighthearted about everything. I would always joke with people, even though I couldn't talk because I had a trach in my
Right.
neck.
Okay.
So, they had me hooked to a breathing machine because I just couldn't breathe on my own because of the disruption in my spine. So all of that was just like, this is it. And I would get frustrated at times, and just the notion that, where do you go from here?
Right.
So yeah, definitely.
How long would you say it took you? Because how long would you say it took you before you said, "All right, not only is this it, but I'm good with this, and I'm gonna, from now on, this is if this is my life, I'm gonna do the best or live the best life I can." How long would you say after, being in the hospital?
I'd say early. They told me the severity of my injury. So the neurologist who performed like my surgery, she said this is the worst break she's ever seen in her career.
Mm.
And so that's like 20 plus years for her
Right.
as a naval doctor. And she was just like, I don't know how you survived. So that was just like the reality check. If this is the worst break you've ever seen, I don't know how else to take it. And they told me like the chances of you recovering fully is like 1%. And I always took it as like 1% is just one away from never. And as I would like consider the severity of my injury, I would always say like, recovery isn't just a physical thing. It's mental and it's spiritual. And like everybody says that until you actually in a position where you got to test that notion. So it was always like there. I know it's like you wake up and you can't move. So it's like what can I do? So I focus more on like, okay, I don't want to be on a breathing machine for the rest of my life. Christopher Reeves was like that because my injury is a little shorter of his, and they got like a feeding tube on me, so I can't eat. And I was just like, man, look, I'm a honey bun, baked macaroni and cheese person. So I'm like, nah, we're gonna have to work this out.
Right.
So um, I would do certain things in the hospital to check myself because the everybody's operating with caution, but I'm just like, I need to kind of move. So like I remember like sneaking and drinking water when I wasn't supposed to because they give you ice chips and like they just want you to suck on the ice chips. I'm just like, I think this is a little bit more dangerous.
Right.
I'm drinking my toothpaste because it's liquefied. I'm just like, nah, like I can swallow, like just whatever can be done. And so I knew I was able to swallow. So if I could swallow, I know that I'm not going to need this peg feeding tube after a while. And then when they transferred me, because I went from Virginia to West Roxbury Veterans Hospital, and I spent 5 months there rehabilitating. So um, I knew I could drink water, and when I first got there, the first night they asked me, "Is like, how what you think about like breathing and stuff?" I just like, "Yo, don't hook me up to the breathing machine," because it's very annoying.
Right.
Like like we talked about superheroes earlier. It's almost like when you lose function, everything else is heightened. The level of sensitivity, my hearing, eyesight, that's real. I couldn't take the ticking of a clock.
Right.
And with the breathing machine, it would be beep, beep, and condensation would come up and it would be gargling, so I couldn't get to sleep. So I told the respiratory therapist, I was like, look, man, I think I'm good. They're like, sure? I was saying, I think I'm good.
Right.
And I got off the breathing machine. Then the feeding tube didn't take long because when I got there, I asked my nurse, who was a good dude, he passed away. His name was Gerard. He was like, "You thirsty?" I was like, "Yeah," because I couldn't talk. So I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What you want?" I was like, "What you got?" And he's just like, it's just like, "Yeah, we got apple juice, cranberry juice, lemonade." I was like, "I'll take the apple juice." So he gave me the apple juice, and I knew I was good. And like low key, he was sneaking like hot pockets to me. Like they had me on a liquid diet, and I'm just like, I'm tired of tomato soup. Like, what we got going on? So I remember him feeding me on my hot pocket, and my respiratory therapist came in. He's like, what are we doing here? And I was like, I'm like, man, we caught red-handed. But he said, take a bite. He saw I was good, and that was like, those were the like little milestones for me that helped me get over it. So like that was like my form of rehabilitating from a physical standpoint.
So you in there leading the charge with the medical field. They're trying to hold you back, and you like, yeah, man, I gotta.
Yeah, I'm like, how long is it going to take before the wheelchair get here?
Right.
They when they fitted me for a wheelchair, you got to like sit up, and I had spent 3 weeks in the ICU, and I'm in my bed all the time because I don't have no chair. And your body, your head just gets used to resting on a pillow. So even when they fitted me for the chair, they're like, it's going to be about an hour. And I remember saying to them, like, yo, why does my head feel so heavy? And everybody would be like, oh, your head's big, Corey. Like, that's what that is. I'm just like, nah, like my head feel heavy. They're like, your head weighs about the amount of like a gallon of milk. So I would push myself to do little things like that, hold my head up. And I would gain like my strength back. Then they were just like, you can't really leave until, you can operate your wheelchair the right way. So they had the cones. I'm like driving in and out of the cones. I'm like making sure, because like at this point, I'm like, all right, I've been here 3 months. I want to go home.
Right.
So I just tried to push what I could do as best as possible. But yeah.
And that's independent of your not the therapy and stuff like that they was doing. You were doing your own thing independent of what they were asking.
Yeah. Like, I mean, when they would like, at the end of the day, when you just like go back to bed and you just got your TV on and it's just you in your room, I'm like trying to do deep breathing. I'm trying to see how long I can hold my breath. I'm practicing how to chew. Again, I'm shrugging my shoulders to the best of my ability to do what I could. And then when they would come in, like for physical therapy or range of motion, like, some days I would like refuse it out of frustration.
Right.
And then for the most part, I would do whatever I could. And I listened a lot to people who were injured, because I was the youngest person on the floor.
Right.
It's like I'm 22 when it happened, and everybody else is older than me. So I'm looking at them, and they bummed out, and they frustrated, and they're angry, and I'm just like, I can't maintain that level, because if I do, I'm going to hinder myself from reaching whatever goals. So I would ask them, like, can I drive? They're like, well, they got certain programs. I'm like, yeah, let me see if I qualify.
Yeah.
I'm just like pushing the envelope, and even if they said no, it's just like, okay, like you say no, that's fine. Let me move on to something else to figure out. And that's just how I got through like the first 5 months.
Yeah, that's like like athletes when practice is over, shooting in the gym, right?
Right.
You're out there. That's cool, man. Do you feel like you ever think of like getting into like inspirational speaking or anything like that? Like
So,
traveling and just commanding the audience and sharing your story.
you know, I really try to allow God to lead. Um, and so when He opens up doors for me, I just ask for the wisdom and discernment to know if I should be walking through it
Right.
or not. You know what I mean? And I feel like His timing is perfect for me. So I've done like some mentoring here and there. And as I got back into doing music, that's where I felt like I can start telling that story
Right.
and what have you. So I revamped like the way I rapped. I changed it, I took the profanity out and just kept it me because now like I'm super vulnerable.
Right.
So all that like I'm whipping a car and I'm doing this like then like you whipping what like
Right. Right.
and I'm just like no I'm whipping this wheelchair like how about that
Right.
and just I had to before like I could inspire people I felt like let me come up with a system that is going to help benefit me. And if I learn what to do to help myself at this point, then I can now help other people because I don't want to tell somebody to be hopeful if I'm sitting here on the low in my heart and I'm hopeless.
Right.
And so I think right now is like a perfect time, even like us coming together and whatnot. Like I haven't seen Ricardo like in years.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I've totally lost touch with him. And for this to come back around, I know that's God.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, now I have thought about it, and I'm kind of like I keep moving in this in that direction
Right.
with a lot of things that I got going on right now. So however God want to use me, that's what I want to do.
All right. I'm gonna get into your music, but I want to kind of touch on something that you touched on a little bit about. You had the nurse, people looking out for you in the
Yeah.
medical community. Obviously, that's their job, but they seem to have been helpful to you. What about your support system outside of the medical community? Talk about like family members, friends, stuff like that.
Yeah, I got a good, I got a great actually. I got a huge support system. Even going back as far as the initial onset of the injury, they told me, like I said, I was comatose. They said they needed a sign-in sheet um, because of all the people who came, people who cried by my bedside and comforted my parents. My captain coming down, he's the highest ranking person on the ship, and for him to talk to my parents, for them to fly the flag half mast for me and then give me the flag, like you can kind of see it in the background right there. They flew that on my ship.
Okay.
You know what I mean? In remembrance of me to note like the work that I put in on the ship meant a lot to me. And so hearing all those stories afterward was like tremendous encouragement because you know how you treat people by the way that what they do for you. You know what I mean? Like you reap what you sow. And, it was overwhelming. And like for my aunts to fly down and drive down to come see me, everybody was calling me. When I got to Massachusetts, my friends would come and see me. My parents would come every weekend. If they couldn't come on the weekend, they'd come the next weekend. Coming home, like, my brother, he was a tremendous, help, in talking to me and what have you. Tons of cousins, friends, like, I mean, you name it, like, it was just incredible. And then, like, you fast forward, that was, like I said, 2005. So eventually I decided to move out of my parents' house because I'm like, I can't live here forever and they can't take care of me forever. And I want to be independent. So I had bought a house, moved out, and then I met my wife, like, I don't know, probably like a week or so later. And she's like amazing. Like when I talk about amazing, like everybody can talk about their wife or their girlfriend or what have you. Nah, like she looked past my injury and she saw me, and I had to be like super vulnerable. Like I was like overconfident when I was walking, but now like I'm like even more like humbled.
All right.
And so when I met her and her family coming on board, because she has a very large family, how much they love me and care for me, like these 16 years could have been really hard because so many guys, sorry, I'm just muting this.
No, do
Can
you
you
think?
still hear me?
Yep, I got you.
So many guys take their life, they give up. Um, and I didn't, even when I had those feelings in those dark moments, I just had so many people just like rocking with me and what have you. So I have a huge, huge support system.
All right, all right. So let's get into the music. So when did you get into music, and was it always hip hop?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so I'm an 80s baby. And my mother would play everything from Duran Duran to Michael Jackson, and she'd play it on records. Like I got tons of Jackson 5 vinyls. And I remember like just, I sneak in the living room, I start DJing, like scratching on the records. So I've always loved music. It wasn't until 95 that I started getting introduced like more into hip hop. Like I would listen to people like Heavy D,
Right.
And Criss Cross. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't want to talk about Criss Cross
Nah, I mean,
and
listen.
what have you. I'm just like, nah, man. They're like, them cats influence a lot of people, and folks don't really give them they do credit. But that was like what it was for me.
Somebody was buying them records. So
Yeah, that's a fact. You know, I'm like, we're putting it in the tape. I'm letting my tape rock until my tape pop, literally. And got to rewind it with the pencil. You know what I mean? Because that's what it was at that time. And so, like, once I got put on to like Snoop, Nas, Skills, Big L, like those are the people that influenced me. And I wrote my first rhyme like in '95. It was like around top dogs of Compton. I had this fascination of going to Cali, and when I grew up, and so like the West Coast had a heavy influence until I started listening to like Nas and stuff like that, like '96, '97, and then from there, because I didn't always go by Pheez, I went by Phenom, and a lot of people in Bloomfield, like they rap, and I got put on like a tape that two people were making called Verbal Narcotics, and I got to be on they tape, and they sold that tape in school and whatnot, and so I learned a lot from watching them, and shout out to Sci-Fi and Man 95, but I just kept it going, and then I met these two guys around my like senior year. They were from Windsor and go by one dude went by Spec and the other one by Kinetic, and they were dropping an album, and so my girlfriend knew them. We exchanged numbers after a basketball game, and like we were on the phone for like hours, just trading verses. And I was just like, "Yo, man, like you nice, like yo, we about to put this album together, and I want you to be on it." And once I got on that album, I started putting my people onto them, and we would drive from Bloomfield to Windsor, and record. In Windsor High had like a little studio going on, and then the dude Kinetic, like he made beats, like he did everything. Like, he made beats, he rapped, and he was really good. And so I just got on board with all of that. Kept it pushing past that point. Even though I joined the Navy, like I had stopped a little bit. I would battle people like in boot camp, like when we have a little break and whatnot. They'd be like, yo, go to that division. We're going to rock with them. And, so it just kept my mind sharp about it. I came home from deployment, like the first one, got on another project that we did. And I just kept on doing that. But like in '05, like after I got hurt, I just stopped.
Right.
I was just like, I don't want to rap no more. I just lost interest and confidence in that ability. And then, but then I started writing again. And I like people would hear me and they're just like, yo, you nice. Like, wow, like, yo, you need to put something out. And 10 years later, in 2015, I started recording again.
Okay.
And then, no, go ahead.
Now I was going to say, so early on in that studio time, you was already, 16 and choruses and all that stuff. So you was already making
Yeah,
songs and like not just rhyming. You was in there with intention or
yeah.
making
No, I
something.
knew what I was doing. Like for real. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm about to put these words together and that was it. It was like intentionality, making sure like the structure of the song is good, like, 16, then 8 bar, 4 bar choruses, and watching my friend produce beats. Like, we'd be up for like 3 hours, like taking samples off TV
Mm,
and whatnot, and making and just making quality music for what we was doing. Like, I remember when we got everything done, we sold the album in school. Like, we had like CDs,
mm-hmm.
autographing people
Yeah,
CDs and
yeah.
what have you, and it was cool because we could see our trajectory until, like, a lot of groups, they end up going their separate ways. But no, I knew what I was doing for sure, like around that time.
How do you when it comes to your recording? Is it you write the song, or you write it to a beat, or
Yeah,
you start with the concept, or is it you just go whichever way you feeling in that particular song?
yeah. It's usually like I come up with like a concept, and I say to myself like, all right, I think this is good. Like on my album, 13th Year, I got like one of the second track on there called Three Wise Men and whatnot. That's a real story.
Right.
Like when I was in the hospital, I met three individuals. And so when I thought about that concept, I was just like, man, like they imparted such wisdom in me. And I can definitely like benefit from everything that they said. And I was just like, you know what does that sound like on wax? So then I started writing out the concept and breaking it down. And then I said, okay, what kind of beat? Like this feel is kind of like it's a sadness, but there's a bit of joy as well into it. And then that's when I start going to like the beat and the sounds that I hear in my head. And then I go on the computer um, and I start producing the beat after that. And then if it's something that I want somebody to sing on, I usually contract somebody out to sing on the hook for me, and I just go from there. And then we might break it apart where I record like the verses, and then the person will come in afterwards. But usually when I work with other people, I like to get them all in the studio at the same time. So it's usually concept first, then beat, and then record.
Yeah. Speaking of concept, the Gotham joint to
Yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that got me. I think that's the first thing I listened to. I don't know how that was the first one. It might have been the last one you did. So
Yeah.
maybe that's why when I looked up videos, I said, "Oh, clicked on that, man," and like tying in the characters to everyday life. To me, like when you sitting down and you was thinking of how did that come about in your mind that you were gonna tie? Because I know it's it's comic related,
Right.
the concept, but how did you tie that in?
Yeah, so I was sitting there just, I was watching like CNN, and usually like like if I got like time, like when I have time on my hand and I'm getting ready for the day, I just like start freestyling sometimes. And then I'm just like, I was like, oh, ooh, I was like, no heroes. I said, because I'm looking at CNN and it's like this machine that keeps pumping out negativity, like just media in general,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And it's not that positive things don't happen. It's just that this is always at the forefront. Like, we talked about earlier, like when does the reality set in? And for me, reality is always present.
All right.
So with No Heroes, I said, we're in a world that's kind of looking for a savior. And, whether you want to believe in God or not, when you try to look into man, there's a piece of scripture in Jeremiah that says, for the heart of man is desperately wicked. Who can know it? And I feel like I'm in a world where like there's nobody to look up to sometimes, and there's no hope in it. So when I started breaking down the characters, I said, you know what? I was just like, we're dealing with issues with immigration, people who want to come to this country and really put in work and effort, and all they want is peace of mind. And so when I did the Ivy Two Face scheme, I was just like, they always talk about people that are new, they're green,
Right.
or what have you. You're fresh, and sometimes that freshness can be tainted, and that's what she was. She had this fresh idea that this thing about America. When you see her, the actress Kathleen looking around, like she's looking at the tall buildings. She's admiring it because she sees hope. And the police are the people you're supposed to look to protect you.
Right.
And we've been having a string of issues where there's a lot of police violence and excessive force. And I had saw an article where I think it happened back in 2016 where a cop was moonlighting. This was after I came up with the concept moonlighting as a pimp. And I said, look at that. I was just like, that's injustice at its finest. This person is supposed to serve and protect. So I started breaking down that, and I was just like, he's being two-faced. He's supposed to be for you, but literally he's really against you, and he's only concerned about himself. So I thought that would be interesting to play into make them not so much superheroes, but everyday people.
Right.
And it was the same thing for the rest of the verses. We were going through a period of time where we talk about mental health all the time. And, you know, we have these mass shootings, suicides, and I thought it would be a dope way to take Harley Quinn, who is, in the beginning, she naturally was like wanting to help out the Joker, but slowly, like, his influence on her, you know, created this kind of like psychopath. Like, she had mental health issues, right? Not that people with mental health are that way, but, you know, you're struggling to get out of side of yourself. Who do you run to?
Right.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, people don't have that option. And like I said, the same thing for the third verse. Young people just, you know, they live a life that we look at, especially those who are celebrities, like, man, the money, the cars, and the fame, and they just as hopeless as you.
Yeah, when you find out how they really live, and you find out they just regular people.
And yeah, that's what really brought that whole thing about. And even with the cover, you know, what I wanted to show was like villains rule. The villains are winning, and what have you. And so you have this gallows with these three made-up characters who are hung, and then the crowd is chanting against them. Because sometimes you feel like, man, like, you trying to do your best, and yet, like, every time you take a step forward, you take two steps back.
Right.
And so that was like, you know, the whole concept around No Heroes.
Now, a lot of outside of there's a couple other ones I'm just gonna talk about that I liked. But outside of, you know, the Gotham joint and some of the other ones, when just listen through your catalog, a lot of it's personal.
Yeah.
A lot of your music is personal. Which one you think was like the toughest one as you writing? You know, you really was like, nah, this. I know you probably a perfectionist anyway, because your music sounds like you take your time. But which one of them you say like you just had to this has to be right. This just wasn't good enough until it was good enough.
Yeah, I would say like between Over Now and Bigger House. So, like, you know, just briefly, like, so that album 13th Year, each of those songs correspond with a year. Okay. So like Three Wise Men is like literally like 2005, and then you go to Over Now, that's 06. Like I say it in the beginning, so each of them represents something that happened during the course of 13 years. And 13 years is traditionally looked at as being like bad luck. So when you look at the album cover, you see this barbed wire over this like bad luck situation, but in reality, there's a lot of blessings. And so that's why you see the clouds shining over the 13th year. You see the hands of God holding the timeline because he's in control. He's got the world, right? And so when I wrote songs like Over Now was like tough because I'm talking about three separate incidences with like my ex-girlfriends. And when you get paralyzed, one of the first things, or traumatically injured, one of the first things that go through your head is like, how are your relationships going to be maintained? Right. And 88% of people don't go on to fulfilling relationships. So that was scary. For me. I'm like, I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life, and who can accept me? So when I wrote that, like, I remember saying in the third verse, this verse is hurting me now, reversing, writing it down. Like, it was painful because I can remember being at that situation where I know our things are falling apart.
Right.
And so that was tough, for sure. Bigger House was tough because I and my wife, you know, like, we want to have children, or wanted to have children at the time. And thank God, like we're blessed. We had two sons, like post injury,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, and getting ready to have our third son. And we end up building a home and trying to create that environment. And we end up losing the baby for that. And so um, because I know the process of which it takes to make a child, not just intercourse, but like from when they start off embryos, seeing those pictures, all the way to they develop. Like my son's 9 right now, and my youngest is 5. I've seen it,
Right.
and I know how hard it is. And so when I wrote that, like there's a lot of tears because I wrote it like shortly after they had lost the baby. So those 2 tracks I say hit the hardest for me.
Right. What about on a lighter side? What about stuff that just didn't make the? How many recordings would you say didn't make the light of day?
Oh man, it's a lot. Like I'm sitting on material right now that soon is going to be released. But they're not just there. They're designed for other projects. So like when I did with Hip Hop in Mind Volume 1, I knew there was tracks that didn't fit into the concept of what I was building.
Right.
And so I said, you know what, like I can save those for the next volume. And then when I started penning for like the sophomore album following 13th year, I just said, I want to take it I want to give it to a different vantage point.
Right.
You know what I mean? 13th year is just a compilation of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But on my next project that'll be released, which is called Head Above Water, I really get into like some gritty
Right.
details of the injury,
Right.
and walking people through that as opposed. So yeah, there's a lot of things that didn't make it, but now I'm sitting on a lot of material.
Do you ever look at your material also too, leaving stuff behind for your kids too to listen to, or your grandkids and stuff like that?
Yeah, like for sure. Like my son's like when I play music, I ask their opinion, hey, you like this? Or like we'll go in the car and my youngest used to always say to me like, Daddy, play picture this for me. He likes the music and they got young ears. So for me, I'm just like, okay, if you can dance to it and you like it, it's cool. But yeah, I'm all about preserving memories because like growing up, like my biological dad wasn't in my life. So I don't have those memories to be like, oh, me and my dad did this, we did that, and we went here and we did this. So I make my kids a part of that journey. So if I die before they get older or what have you, they can know that like, yo, my dad truly loved me. My dad truly cared about me. Why? Because he's always trying to involve me
Right.
in what he's doing.
Right.
And so, yeah, definitely, I want to preserve it for them so they have something to hold on to.
Yeah. So a couple of the ones for me was the cover you did over One More Chance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Just to me, like I'm 48, so I grew up like really listening to it from its inception. So
Right,
once upon a time, it was all about like lyrics and wordplay.
right.
So and if you're gonna, to me, like if you're gonna cover something like One More Chance, it has to be fire. Would you think it like
Yeah,
you're gonna get on this One More Chance beat? But to me, the way you tied it in, that's to me, I always enjoy lyrics, and I must admit I haven't listened to. I don't think I listened to anything new, to be honest with you. In the last
yeah,
couple of years, I got my stuff in my like my iPod and my iTunes, but it's
yeah.
all older music because it's just lyrically I'm not getting it overall. There's some stuff out there, but lyrically I
Mm.
haven't been getting it. So I appreciated that. And the one that hit me the hardest is because I have been struggling with a couple of friends of mine passing away over the last couple of years. And I mean,
Mm.
really, it's been like that since we've been kids, since we've been like 12,
Right,
13.
yeah.
At least once a year, somebody
Mm.
we know. But the last couple of years been tough. But that early morning, late night calls,
Yeah,
I I I was like, I said, man, I don't even know if I want to bring it up to you because I was emotional listening to it, and I was like, I got to
yeah,
make sure I gather myself before I talk to you about that. But that's tough, man. That early morning, late night calls was as toughest to listen to so far.
yeah.
The catalog.
Yeah, that one was. So I've always had that issue since 7. Like the first time I can remember experiencing um, death that was the closest to me. Like my friend lost his brother prior to that when I was 7. But like when my grandmother died, that's when that like affected me, because I can remember that call coming in 4 in the morning, and I happened to be awake. And my mom brought me in her room, and it's like, your grandmother died, and seeing her, in that casket and breaking down, it was devastating to me because I love my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I noticed that from that time on to the time, like to present, I typically have experienced that call coming in. And so, like in that first verse, go in 2014, my cousin Rashad was killed,
Mm-hmm.
and when I talk about that story, like it hits so hard because I know how much I love him, and that family, like his grandmother is like my grandmother, even though she's my aunt. And when I lost him, like I broke down. I remember it was like I said, 7:30 a.m. got the call. It always like is like that. So because you can lose people so quickly, like, and even in '05 when I almost died, that July my cousin died.
Mm.
And then I think another family member had passed away. So I lost 2 cousins. So it almost was 3 deaths in a matter of a few months. And so when I look back at that, I say to myself, like, I gotta appreciate the time that you have with people, because you don't know when they're going to be called. And even in the second verse, I wanted to, like, I related to veterans and what have you, because, a lot of people in the military have passed on. But really, there's a subliminal in there. So my friend Marta, who had passed away, like maybe a couple years after that, I just included her because I wrote the song after 2014. She had passed away from complications of diabetes.
Mm.
And I got that call, literally, I got that call like 8:30 at night, but I just did the 10:30 because, I was relating it to veterans. But it's just like, I've known you since a kid, since children, like you said, since you're 12. And for people when they're in your age group pass away,
Tough.
don't it hit you like
Yeah, it's tough.
differently, because now you realize your mortality
Yeah.
is just as near as theirs. So yeah, early morning, late night calls. That's shout out to my girl Carla, who sang on it. She got a beautiful voice. But yeah, like that track, that's another one I would say, is definitely heartfelt.
Yeah. And it leaves me always questioning, especially like you said, when they're your age, you're like, yo, like all the stuff I did, or I could have been in the wrong place. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I've been questioning like why I'm still here. So
Mm.
I've been struggling with stuff like that, and listening to that, it was like one of them things where I had to play that a couple of times. I probably will, that probably be my go-to, just because I'm in that space now, and it's such a beautiful
Yeah.
song. So
Thank you.
yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole and get into your catalog. What I did was I found a couple of, I probably listened to all the way through about 10, and then I was like, I went and did like a minute of a couple other ones just to kind of get a feel. And like I
Yeah.
said, I could see everything was pretty personal. So I was like, I think I got enough research, enough recon and research, and
Yeah.
just to chop it up with you a little bit. And I appreciate you giving me your time. Anything, I had asked you about inspirational speaking, so I'll put you on the spot and ask you to leave me with something inspirational that you can tell to somebody.
For sure. I definitely want people to know that in spite of whatever you are going through, continue to endure. The Bible tells us that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character hope, and that hope doesn't put us to shame. So when you are experiencing these down times, they definitely have an upside to them. But just ask God for discernment to open up your eyes to be able to see the beauty and all the scars that you may have, because they're going to be the thing that get you through whatever you're doing. So that's what I definitely want people to take away.